Andrew Beyer took the initiative to call me and said, I have Michael Miller and I think it would be a great story to share with the group. Love the story. It's about driving innovation and teams and manufacturing processes and really driving new outcomes.
At Procter & Gamble, we start each and every day by asking the question, what if? As in, what if we could figure out a better solution to one of life's daily problems? A more convenient or more sustainable or more innovative solution? For almost 200 years, we've kept asking this question because there's always a better answer. Like, what if getting your clothes cleaned could be made easier? And easy got easier. Hey, what if we could save energy and get clothes as clean in cold water as they get in warm water? What if we could somehow make this, and this smell like this, and this? What if the diaper you used to keep your baby dry didn't go into a landfill, but became bottle caps and park benches? See that? You made that. What if we could make an eraser that was magic? As in, nuh-uh, how'd you do that, magic? What if dish detergent could save lives? Cute, precious lives. What if we applied what we know about cleaning dishes, hands, and clothes to helping clean the world's drinking water? And what if, after almost 2 centuries of asking the same simple question, we were still obsessed with answers that turned science fiction into nonfiction? Because what if hair never changed with the weather? Or what if you could save up to 15 gallons of water with every load because you no longer had to wash your dishes before you wash your dishes? Or what if the way you washed your shirt could quadruple its life? What if we could find a way that no plastic finds its way into the ocean? So this plastic turns into this plastic. Or what if we could make all of our products with renewable energy and send zero waste to landfills? And what if we ended this video with who we're doing all of this for in the first place?
Good morning. Any thoughts, like immediate thoughts that jump into your head when you first see that video? When I saw that video for the first time, my thought was, who the heck gets up at 6 a.m.? I mean, I work in manufacturing for a lot of years. By 6 a.m., I'm halfway through my morning. So I was wondering if that maybe hit anybody in the audience. I joined Procter & Gamble as an acquisition. So I'm not a lifelong P&Ger. I was with Gillette, and we're fond of saying that just the color of the blue in my blood changed because our corporate colors were both blue. So in the next, hopefully I will not be too long, and there's no way I'm sweet, so we're gonna just go with that. Over the last couple of days, it's really clear that we've all, as companies, thought about what our aspirations are. And this is the aspiration that today drives P&G. We've been at it about 180 years. It's a very interesting company. For years and years and years, we didn't share much on the outside, right? We were a company that just went about our business and did our thing and kept focused at it. But it's a very human company. I know we talked about human companies yesterday. And the interesting part is when I joined P&G, I would go to join-ups, these initial meetings with people. And the very first thing people would talk about was not their job, was not their role, was their family, their faith, their passions, kind of what drove them as individuals. And then eventually you or they would start talking about what they actually did in the company. And it was quite a different experience, and that goes back 13 years now. So we are, for better or worse, a truly global company. One of my very first dinners with P&G, 17 people at the table in Boston, only 2 of us were from the US, 1 Canadian, and everybody else was from a different country around the world. So we are a company that's been around a long time. We've been reinventing ourselves over and over and over again. And this is today how we're organized, backed by sectors, very focused on what our regions are. So we've reinvented, adapted, changed, and innovated to meet those aspirations. So Laura told me when she asked me, she says, be really clear on your definitions. And I said, okay. And Andrew said, if Laura asks you, do it. I said, okay. So I said, I'll be really clear. This is our definition of innovation, right? It's taking something that's established, might be something that's completely new, but you're changing that method, ideas or products, like the bottles that are all beach plastic today with Head & Shoulders. One of the things we've learned along the journey on this innovation, so my role is in our Global Business Development Organization, which is our external-facing organization for things like acquisitions, divestitures, joint ventures, academia, consortia. I was here in Chicago before MXD was MXD, before it was DMDI, when it was still just a proposal being put together to work with the administration at the time to try to actually stand it up in Chicago. Today, what we found is you've got to have all the lanes open. You can't just be innovating in one lane. You can't just be saying, okay, we're going to innovate in our factories with our people to get them really. You got to be doing innovation across the board. And you've got to have a front door, because there's a lot more innovation. Last count, I think we had 8,000 or 9,000 PhD level researchers and scientists in the company. That's a lot. I mean, we have 4 PhD level fluid rheologists. The US graduates 3 of those every year. We have 4 in the company. And even with all that, we can't innovate as fast as we need to innovate to grow. And we're growing again, which is really nice. A year ago, we were trading at about $75, $78 a share. I think yesterday we closed at 123. So business is good, makes people happy. It also means that a lot of people who are ready to retire are looking at the door. So we have to innovate. Behind that, we have to keep the people who are coming into the company innovating fast, and we have to do it with a lot of partners. And this represents just a short list of the kind of partners that we work with today. I'm going to talk about, over the next few minutes, innovating with startups. So one of the things we found is that there's a large global startup community now, a lot of young people going in with new ideas, creating new businesses. How do we tap into that as a resource? And so I'm going to walk you through our process for doing that. In fact, next week I'll be out in San Francisco, our global engineering organization, talking to startups and doing an event out there with non-compete companies together to co-discover and explore what it means to work with startups. So as we talk about innovation, I want to just ground us in one view of how we think about value around innovation. And so we all invest, we're all spending lots of money to do research, to kind of think about things and find out about things. Hopefully that research turns into knowledge, we know something, and then we can lay on some innovation to that to turn it into value, deliver that value back to the company. I think that's the expectation of all of our leadership. So, people know I'm going to imagine most people in the room might know the movie this comes from, right? When you start pursuing innovation, do you want to take the blue pill or the red pill? Do you want to live a state of blissful ignorance and illusion, or do you want to wake up and see reality, right? I think in the supply chain organization, most of us have been hooked on the red pill for a while. And so let's talk about one example of the red pill. The blue pill would say that's a full truck. Can't carry any more weight. The red pill would say that truck's not even half full, right? So what definition of full applies to that truck? When you start to look at that as half full and not full, it starts to create all these opportunities to think about innovation in a different way. And so as we've approached the next wave of innovation, it's caused us to rethink and relook at what we would have previously defined as a good metric, right? That would have been a full truck. That's not a full truck in the way we measure it today. Yesterday we were talking about the definition of digital. So we think about digital around information processes, but there's always these physical processes that run alongside, right? I think we've all made that abundantly clear over the last couple of days. And so for us, digitization is the other side of the coin, the other hand in automation, right? automation, physical processes. Taking those physical processes and making change to those to, guess what, add value. So digitization for us is, are we using automation and innovation to drive value in those information processes? It's just one definition to work from. It's kind of one that we use. Because this is a manufacturing-focused discussion, it'd be helpful to talk about what is it that, how does P&G view manufacturing, and what do we call it? So we have a system called IWS. It's our integrated work system. I've worked in the past with Toyota Production System. We collaborate a lot with Toyota, or we go back and forth looking at each other's things. But it's a true evolution, not a revolution. It's kind of the best learning that we've had over years and years and years. When we first started to look, I first came into the company and looked at IWS, somebody said, well, you should start here. And it was a book from 1947 on continuous improvement, how to drive continuous improvement. And it had everything that I was taught back in engineering school, in trade school in North Avenue in Atlanta. But it was like there in 1947, well before Deming, well before all the other things that happened. And that's all bled into what is IWS today. And it's not just in manufacturing. Today, we apply IWS in our planning service centers. We treat our planning processes like we treat equipment from a TPM standpoint. Is it running on centerline? Did the process have a breakdown? Do we understand that? Do we apply the same kind of problem-solving tools to the physical process that we do the information process? And it's caused us to dramatically rethink the way we look at those things. It's led to a level of performance that I didn't, having been at it a long time, I didn't think was possible. Today, in our best performing factories, we have less than 2% unplanned downtime. As a person who led planning in Boston for Gillette before I came over to P&G, if my factories were running with less than 2% unplanned downtime, planning it was like sleeping on a Sleep Number mattress. It was a dream, right? I mean, it'd be wonderful. If I'm running at 10, 20% unplanned downtime, how easy is it to plan that? And so the surprising part for this was, as we got better at performing, safety got better. Employee satisfaction got better. I mean, when you walk in a plant where there's less than 2% unplanned downtime, people have breathing room. I work a lot with outside companies, and I was in one company, and the line was stopping 200 times a day. People were exhausted. So there's all these other benefits that fall out of this increased reliability, including what translates into the supply chain. So let's get at how we think about startups and accessing those in this multi-lane highway of innovation. We call it Shark Tank. We're big into brands, and it's a great brand, and it means something. So in manufacturing, we call it Shark Tank, and all of our organization kind of has a feel for that. They've seen the TV show, and they are ready to go get engaged with startups. Over the last several years, we've engaged a few startups. We're not quite to 1,000. We've heard a lot of pitches, and we've done pilots, and we've turned those into actual scalable innovations that apply across our organization. So one of the things we bring to every event, to every Shark Tank, is something that we call a founder. A founder is a business leader with a checkbook, with a budget, and a set of challenges, issues, or problems they need to solve. If you don't have people who you're bringing to an event like this who understand their problems and bring some money to go do pilots or study what the opportunity is, you're wasting your time. So founders got to come with their challenges, and they have to come with their checkbooks. The pitch, everybody's seen Shark Tank or heard a startup do a pitch. That's pretty straightforward. The pilots are then sponsored by these founders. They now own this relationship with this startup, right? A big challenge with working with startups is asymmetric relationships. It's not unusual for us to be called the 800-pound gorilla. I don't know if she can draw a gorilla really fast, but some of us in the room would relate to being the 800-pound gorilla. Startups look at us and they're admittedly nervous, right? Sometimes we can, I think I heard this comment, we can love them so much. We just hug them and squeeze the life right out of them, right? So if the founders understand this relationship, this asymmetric relationship, and how they need to continue to nurture the startup and work with them to not overwhelm them with our scale. And the last part is scale, and I'm not going to cover that. You all, I think, know what it means to scale it into your business. So there's an old saying, some of you may have heard it, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And so, everybody wants to rush at innovation. Sometimes you take your time, you understand what the startup's capable of doing, work with them, test it out, and then if you've done that and you've done it well, scaling is fast. Scaling is easier. If you rush through the pilot and you don't really understand everything that's going on, what they're made of, what their ability to scale is, what the cost's going to look like, what your true benefits are, guess what? When you think it's a success and you go to scale, it's like hitting a brick wall. You can't scale fast. So take your time, explore. One of the things we do is we call these events with a partner we work with on the West Coast. And so we have these events, San Francisco, which you expect, New York, Berlin, Tel Aviv, Shanghai, Philippines, Singapore, all over the world. So we have truly a global startup community that we work with. We also have a company we work with who helps facilitate those relationships, and sometimes when necessary takes out their cattle prod and shocks the 800-pound gorilla, right? They don't often poke the startup, but they spend a lot of time poking us, keep us in line, and keep us managing that activity in the right way. So I talked about founders. I talked about this event we have where we bring a group of people around a theme of activities. But we also often have founders come to us now that they've been to an event, to what we call a live lab or Shark Tank, say, I have a very specific problem. Well, guess what? We've built a highway. We've built relationships with these global startups. We have one specific problem. It's pretty well defined. We have data. We've maybe collected some data that tells us what this problem is, and we're able to then go to the startup community, the landscape, against a specific problem, and then bring some startups in and do specific pitches related to that. We call that a brief to pilot process. So by doing one, we learned how to do the other. And that's what you do. As you go in innovation, you'll find new ways to innovate faster. Okay. So keep going. And here we go. So distillation. My preference is distillation, unless it's seafood, in which case boiled is my preference. Asymmetry. We talked about asymmetry. Culture is the second big piece of those relationships. A startup culture looks a lot different than some parts of the P&G culture. You could probably imagine that startup culture looks different than some of your internal culture. Understanding how your culture and their culture differ is one part of making sure that that relationship will work. Speed. We're not often accused of moving super fast. I don't know about your organization, but our idea of speed, 100x yesterday, I think I heard, and the startups working at 10,000x or 100,000x. We may be wanting to go at 100x, but they're 10 times or 100 times faster than we are in the way they think about the world. Self-awareness. So that goes to the first three. Are the founders that you're bringing, are the people that you're bringing to engage the startups self-aware of the asymmetric relationship, self-aware that there's a cultural aspect, self-aware that there's a speed thought process. So making your partners that you bring to innovation events aware of the first three is super important. And instilling a level of patience in them. Remember, go slow at the beginning, and then you can go fast later. And then what does partnership look like? Helping have a definition of how you're going to engage in partnership with these startups to move forward, and knowing up front your governance processes, confidentiality, financial remuneration, all those things. Have some thought process of how they're going to work out and what it means to have a partnership with them before you get started. It's highly valuable. And then I'm done, and I'd ask you to think about what is your what if.